Thank you. Mark Hyman, read his books. They're very interesting. Provocative guy, always happy to listen to him. In this next conversation, we're going to talk about how we scale this work even further around food as medicine and make sure that efforts to eat for our health continue to receive the attention they deserve. So I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Roy Steiner, the Senior Vice President for the Food Initiative at the Rockefeller Foundation. Please give him a round of applause. Joy Chevalier is the chair of the Austin-Travis County Food Policy Board and the founder and CEO of the Cook's Nook. She needs no introduction here in Austin. And Brandon Lombardi is the Chief Sustainability Officer for Sprouts Farmers Markets. We love Sprouts. I want to thank just a few more of our in-kind partners, including Floofy's, Quinn, Tony's Chocolonely, My Moshi, Brass Roots, Swig Cheese House, Daily Harvest, and Better Sour. Give them a round of applause. So, Roy, if I can start with you. We heard a little bit about the increased need for philanthropy a little bit earlier. Shh. And the Rockefeller Foundation has made a massive investment in food as medicine, and I'm wondering why and how that came about.
Sure. We've been around for 113 years and spent a lot of our early philanthropy on improving the productivity of agriculture. And about 7 years ago, we just, really got hit in the face with the source of greatest early mortality is your diet. So what we're actually eating is, as Mark was saying, is killing us. And so what does it mean to actually shift that system? And that was the question that led us to the food as medicine. And when you start looking at the numbers, just to punctuate some of this, if you look at, I ask, this is one of my favorite questions is, what is the cost of diabetes in the United States per year? And when I do that, most people will guess 3 billion, 30 billion. It's $327 billion. That's almost $1 billion a day for one diet-related disease, right? And most people are we've lost control and lost understanding of how expensive our food system is. And we can shift it. This is solvable, right? And I think we're on this panel that really believe that. And when we do that, it's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
And we're starting. We've just launched the largest set of randomized controlled trials on food as medicine with the American Heart Association.
I know.
Yes. It's a $200 million research program that started a few years ago. And we have 20, 30 RCTs right now running across the country. So it's actually ready for the moment.
Yeah.
This food as medicine moment is happening. And the goal of those trials are to provide actuarial data to the insurance companies so that food as medicine can be a reimbursable medical benefit. And that will fundamentally shift the system because suddenly, turns out, food is actually cheaper than pharmaceuticals, and in many cases more effective for some disease states. And if we can make that shift, it's going to be pretty transformative.
One question that comes up for me, because the pharmaceutical industry is so powerful, they must be totally shaking in their boots over stuff like this.
It's a mixed. Actually, there are some pharmaceuticals that are actually quite companies that are very supportive. Because it turns out when you feed people better, they actually respond to your drugs better, right? And so there's a whole set of cancer drugs, all of that you can demonstrate that you're going to create much greater healing. So it's not fully. There are some, obviously, that they're going to take a huge profit hit, but others that won't. And so we've got to build a lot of allies across everyone.
Yeah, it goes back to sort of unusual collaborations, which you know all about. Brandon, I want to turn to you if I can. Lindsay, your colleague earlier, talked about some of the work that the Sprout Healthy Communities Foundation does, but you're also doing a lot of work on the retail side to support the food as medicine movement. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me, and thanks for having Lindsay earlier. The big headline for me, right, is that there are potentially hundreds of thousands of deaths annually in this country that are preventable and related to nutrition. The science is there. We know that. There seems to be a disconnect in the medical profession and how people are talked to about the needs for prevention, for treatment. I think you alluded to it, Roy, that we spend $600-700 billion in prescription drugs annually. I mean, that's almost half or more than half of what we spend for food at home. And so Sprouts, we've been in the health food space since we opened as a fruit stand in like 1943. And our legacy founder, was driving up to LA from San Diego to bring fresh fruits and vegetables down to his community in San Diego. And so this has been in our DNA. And so we curate our assortment to specialize in supporting people who need specific dietary services, both food and engaging consultation in terms of how they interact with our team members. We've got 7,500 vitamin and supplement SKUs, and our vitamin people go through extensive training, and they live and believe our purpose of helping people live and eat better. And so, when you come in, as you think about bridging the gap between, the medical profession, possible lack of knowledge in terms of their nutrition education, how they communicate, to patients who may not have the understanding about how they can change their life and embark on a healthy living journey, retailers like us have to be there for them, both with the assortment, both with the content, both with clear packaging, how to understand it, help them along that, and also be engaging at the store level. And so we've been doing that for years and years now, and we just continue to get better at it. So we like to say that we're there for our customers wherever they are on their journey. So we don't just have 2 gluten-free SKUs, we've got aisles of it. We don't just have 2 grass-fed, types of beef or bison or alternative, lean proteins. We've got our plant-based milk set, outperforms our traditional milk set, our dairy milk set. So, as you think about our customers and how they like to shop and what they're looking for, we want to be there for them where they need us.
Brandon, just for a moment, can you talk about how the team members you mentioned at your stores are so critical to this work?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, many people don't know where to start. I mean, like I said, they're not getting that. I have a predisposition for high cholesterol, right? And when I went to my doctor and we discovered this, he didn't say to me, let's talk about your diet. What are you eating? What should you be eating? How do we think about your nutrition profile go forward? It was, do you want to get on a lipid? And so, or a statin. And it was like, no, I'm not even 40 yet. Like, this was 10 years ago. And so, but I'm in the health food space, so for me it was easy. I was already eating well, and I I could tweak. So, but a lot of people aren't. Most people aren't. I mean, this audience is probably predisposed to, being further engaged in this than most people are. So talking to the choir here, but most people need that assistance. They need that gap bridged for them, and so you can't just do that by having the right product, having the right content on the label, getting the right media content out to them. You have to be there for them when they arrive at the store as well. Now we've got a great e-commerce business, so we help people through that. So again, finding them where they are, being there for them where they need us, omni-channel, but being at the store, many people need that consultative engagement.
Thank you for that. Joy, I want to turn to you because so much of your career has really been spent helping consumers make food as medicine something they can do easily and deliciously. How do you do that?
So what's up, Austinites and Central Texans? Hey, y'all. So some of you guys may not know, but the Cook's Nook is actually a nutrition solutions and interventions company. So we are actually working with those in city, county governments, healthcare, insurers, and other benefits platforms companies who are actually trying to execute on these interventions. Typically, they're in Medicaid and Medicare, but they don't necessarily have to be, right? And so what we do is we create nutrition, our general wellness meals, renal, diabetes, and heart health meals. And also we have a maternal health program as well that's actually quite targeted. So my background before this was actually I was a global product strategist and person who focused on targeting. How do you meet people in communities where they actually are to get them involved? And then I moved to food. So to your question, what we are attempting to do is to basically in the spaces that these two have just talked about, how do people actually reach that? How do they access that? Your cities and counties ask because it affects what happens in their county health hospital systems, right? Your healthcare systems ask the same thing. They see them at the door, they see those renal patients again, and the ER, way more expensive to have dialysis than it would have been to have fed them for a year, appropriate renal meals, right? And then you have those who do have the opportunity to be on a store floor and try to make choices. I think we're going to be in a state very quickly where we're talking about what does self-directed care look like? What does that mean? when you no longer have access to things that you maybe have had access to before, Medicare, Medicaid, reduced dollars in your own homes, whatever that looks like. That how do you make those choices, where do you make those choices, becomes incredibly important, and making sure that the program, the mechanism is there, the nutrition is there, the program is there, the education is there, and whatever that looks like.
Yeah, thank you for all of that. So many things to unpack there, but I now want to turn, something that's been brought up is there's so much research that's needed to make all the things that the three of you do work. And Roy, we had Selena Ahmed, your friend, our mutual friend, talk about the Periodic Table of Food initiative. How does that fit into the food as medicine world?
Sure. So if people don't know, there's an initiative we are calling the Periodic Table of Food Initiative, and it really came out of this question of what is quality? What do we know about our food? And I've been in food all my life, and I didn't realize that most food composition tables measure anywhere between 25 and 150 molecules in a particular food. An average human diet has 20,000 plus. We measure and understand less than 1% of the molecules we put into our body. Isn't that that's pretty extraordinary? And it's like we've been looking at the night sky with our eyes, and suddenly now with mass spectrometry and bioinformatics, we have the Hubble telescope. And we're going, oh man, there's galaxies that we had no idea existed, and that's what we're finding out in our food. So the Periodic Table of Food is this network of mass spec labs all over the world for the very first time analyzing our food in its full diversity. And we're finding all kinds of amazing things that I talk to food scientists, and they've been studying this for 50 years, and they go, really? And so we're at the cusp of an incredible nutrition revolution.
Yeah.
What that means now is we can actually start asking questions, what is the difference between organic and regeneratively grown food and conventional food? Turns out there's a big molecular difference. Whether it makes a difference in health, we still have to figure out. But people say, oh, it's the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. And we have now real hardcore data to show that. And the way you grow food matters to the nutritional density of that food. And we're getting better and better and better at being able to do that. The others then is the same methodology. We can measure urine and stool, so we can measure everything that's coming in and everything's that's going out. And that's going to be really interesting because we can do all these biomarkers now and start asking questions we really had no tools before to do. Mm-hmm. So that, I think, we're at the beginning of something really extraordinary. And
yeah.
It's a super exciting time in science.
It is a revolution, and I wonder, Brandon and Joy, how can retailers and businesses use the research that's being done with the PTFI, but all the other research that nutritionists and dietitians and academics are doing all over the world to make sure that we're providing food that's not just healthy and delicious, but also culturally relevant, fits into communities. Yeah. Brandon, you want to go first?
Sure, I'll jump in quick and then pass it over. But so we, again, as I talked about us being in the health food space for a long time, we work a lot with small farmers, small producers, small growers to really focus on driving organic. So 20% of our business is produce. Half of that last year was organic. And you have to really nurture those relationships with farmers. Regenerative is another piece. We know, as you mentioned, that research is starting to come out, less so on regenerative, but more on organic, but it's starting to come on regenerative as well, that there's higher vitamin content. It's better nutrition for you. But how do you tell that story to the customer? Mm-hmm. Organic's been out for decades now, and people are just starting to understand. For a long time, there was controversy about it. Is it better? Is it not? Misinformation. I think we're getting to a better place where we can, so a retailer like us, we continue to drive that. We work with farmers. Our customer wants it. We want to bring that along. We want to help them scale because there is not a lot of regenerative or organic farmland compared to what we need. And so, it's retailers like us, like Whole Foods, like others, that work with local farmers, work with organic farmers, work with regenerative farmers to help bring that to scale and help get that word out. So that's where we fit into some of those things.
Yeah.
And again, back to what I mentioned on, how we think about, grass-fed, how we think about line-caught seafood, how we think about pushing wild-caught. You have to drive it to the customer and sometimes help bring the customer along on the benefits of these attribute-based foods in order to drive demand and then bring scale. And so it's this kind of chicken and egg thing, but we're pretty good at it.
No, you are pretty good at it, and I appreciate you mentioned relationships. You have to build those relationships and have them in place to work. Joy knows that very well.
Oh, that's where we get to spend all of our time. So despite the fact that, we focus B2B, so we're typically behind the scenes building these kinds of nutrition products that eventually go out, dealing with the metrics, the distribution, how that organization wants to make sure that folks are receiving that nutrition. We spend a lot of time on two parts. One is, what is the food? What are the requirements, whether it's the Heart Association, Diabetes Association, et cetera. Now a lot of GI meal requests as well. But we develop a variety of food, a variety of experiences for someone to have the kind of nutrition that they're going to want to have, right? That might be a meal. It might be in partnership with a vegetable set. It might be in combination of, I got to take things away and they have to be snacks. But the point is, we end up working with a lot of academics, and we're actually in the study that actually just got mentioned for our maternal health program, is actually in that program, to try to understand, all right, what are the studies saying to us, and then how do we make literally a meal be a great experience, a culturally relevant experience, that it tastes, smells, and still has the experience that someone wants. It has touchstones in that food that make them want to stay in the program,
right,
that make them want to eat that food, even if you say it is the ultimate in a renal meal, right? That's not what's going to make that pediatric patient, that renal pediatric patient, eat it. It's going to taste like something that they want. It tastes like something that reminds them of family or home or some experience. And so you got to do both. You got to do both parts. And that's what we end up spending a lot of time doing, is creating a ton of nutrition, getting it appropriately looked at from the dietetic's standpoint, and then saying, does it have the right story and the right experience with it too? Is it coming out of a Southern cookbook, a Northeastern cookbook, an African American historical cookbook? Is it Korean meals? And whatever that experience has to be.
Yeah.
So you got to layer both sets on.
It has to be part of that, absolutely. I've been ending most of these panels because they go by so fast, and I'm sorry about that, with asking you all for a call to action. And this audience, what do you want them to do? What do you want the federal government to do? What do you want health institutions to do? I'll start with you, Roy.
Yeah, I think we're at the verge of getting food as medicine, whether that's medically tailored meals or produce prescription programs, to be reimbursable medical benefits. And I think that's going to be transformative, and we should support it in another way. And then the other thing is, I think we need also a whole dose of humility and curiosity. I think there's, in a social media landscape where there's a whole bunch of bullies and know-it-alls,
right.
I think we need to just be kind to each other. And there is not one way and one body and one diet. We have to be curious. And in my Baha'i community, we talk about the humble posture of learning. And I think we all need a humble posture of learning.
I love it. Joy.
I'm going to come back to the idea of self-directed care. I'm going to be that person that's going to tell you $1 billion cut this past week in programs that directly bring food from farms into the marketplace, where we can actually access them and transform them into the things that people use and eat and consume. And so if we're talking about those who will no longer have access to that, what does it look like to do self-directed care, even more so than in the past? And how do we have to be in the exact place at the right time with the right nutrition and help them along in this process? How are we going to be able to do that? It comes back to being in those communities very directly.
Thank you.
Buy local.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Buy local.
Go ahead. Jump in. Go ahead.
No, that was it. Buy local.
This is a big. The health trend, the declining health trend, is a big issue. I started with mentioning, disease, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, et cetera, all these things that are related to nutrition. But it's not only food, right? There's environmental factors, there's poverty, there's time. Many people work 2 jobs. They don't know how to. This is big. It's bigger than us, and it's going to take a holistic approach. So all I can say to you all, who are, again, already my target audience, you're already hostage to this thought. So I would just say, do what you can. I'm not as much of a believer anymore in emailing your congressman or congressperson. Years ago when Ralph Nader was making change, it took 3%, to do that. I don't think that's the case any longer. So I would just say do what you can. If you have money, support nonprofits that are advocating for this stuff or that are bringing, nutrition to kids in schools and getting them to, reverse a, increasing obesity epidemic in children. Like, if you have money, support. If you don't, if you have a social media platform, use that, advocate that way, educate people, bring them along on the journey, drive more demand in the health food space so that we can scale, as I alluded to earlier. So do what you can in your given space, and that's what I would say.
Thank you so much. I really love that throughout the day, the ideas that you've all mentioned this, but Roy said it in a concise way. Humility, curiosity, kindness, these are all things that will take us forward in ways that I don't think we've seen for a long time. And hopefully, in this time of uncertainty, we can remember those sort of tenets of inspiration. So thank you all. Give them a round of applause, please.